Moderator, and good morning to all. Welcome to the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. I will now call this meeting to order at 10:02. I will now proceed to agenda item number 2 and call for a roll call and establishment of quorum. At this time, I would like to note that committee member Linda Ng is present at the Sacramento location, and I would like to ask Angela to call roll and establish a quorum.
Good morning. I will start with Bertha Sanchez Hayden,
Present.
Elizabeth Ichikawa,
Present.
Joyce Anthony,
Present.
Linda Ng,
Present.
Alfred Torregano.
Present.
Thank you. And I'd like to note that committee member James Moore is not attending the meeting today. With 5 members present, we do have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I will now proceed to the next agenda item. I would like to ask advisory committee members and Bureau staff to introduce themselves. I'll get us started. I am Bertha Sanchez Hayden, Chair of the Advisory Committee. I work as a directing attorney at Batsedic Legal Services, a nonprofit in Los Angeles. As I call your name, please introduce yourselves. Vice Chair Elizabeth Ichikawa.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Ichikawa. I'm the supervisor for investigating for Solano County, and I am the court investigator on the Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce Anthony.
Hi, I'm Joyce Anthony. I'm a professional fiduciary. I was started in 2005. I practice at Prime Fiduciary Services in Los Altos, California.
Thank you. James Moore is not present. Linda Ng.
Good morning, Linda Ng here. I am an enroll agent specialized in taxation, and I'm so glad to be here in person, getting to see all the staff and looking at all of you from this angle. So thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Alfred Torregano.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Alfred Torregano. As our moderator says, I am a DJ, artist, producer, and an entrepreneur, and happy to serve on this board with you all today. Happy to be here.
Helen Joffrey.
Hello, and thank you for pronouncing that correctly. I appreciate that. It's Helen Joffrey. I am legal counsel for the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau.
Thank you. Terry McLean.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Terry McLean. I'm the program manager of the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau.
Angela Quadra.
Hi, I'm Angela Quadra, the program analyst for the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau.
Thank you. And Sue Lowe.
Hi, good morning. I'm Sue Lowe. I'm one of the Bureau's enforcement analysts.
Thank you. And Catherine Scott.
Hello, good morning. My name is Kathy Scott. I'm an analyst here in the Enforcement Professional Fiduciaries Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all advisory members and staff. We will now proceed to the next item on the agenda. I'm going to wait for the step. Agenda item number 4, public comment on the items not on the agenda. Please allow me to briefly address this agenda item. California law prohibits advisory committee members from discussing or taking action on any matter not on the agenda. However, this item offers an opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not listed on today's agenda. Please be aware that the public comment during this period item should provide information to the advisory committee members and is not meant to be a discussion between the advisory committee and the public. Though this may seem at times like the advisory committee members or bureau staff are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensuring the rules of the Open Meetings Act are followed. Before the advisory committee asks for the public comment, I ask individuals making comments not to discuss any pending complaints, pending licensing applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the Bureau's legal counsel. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications by potentially providing information to the Bureau's legal counsel outside of the administrative record in a case. The advisory committee requests that you also respect the privacy of others by not revealing the names, other personal information, and the conditions of any individuals involved in any case or complaint. The advisory committee can receive comments regarding the Bureau's process in general. However, it cannot receive comments on specific cases. If you want the advisory committee to discuss a topic not on today's agenda, you may request that that item be considered for a future meeting agenda during public comment on agenda item 11. However, please be aware that an agenda item recommendation does not obligate the Bureau to fulfill that request. If your comment is related to an item on today's agenda, please wait until we get to that agenda item. Comments at this time are only for the items not on the agenda. To allow the advisory committee sufficient time to conduct its full schedule of business, each public comment will be limited to 2 minutes. Please do not duplicate or repeat the comments of a previous speaker. I will now turn to public comment. Since we are having a hybrid meeting, I will start with public comment on each agenda item, including this one, with individuals attending the meeting in Sacramento, followed by individuals attending the meeting via WebEx. I would now like to invite members of the public attending the meeting in Sacramento to provide comments on this agenda item. Agenda item number 4, items not on the agenda. Terry, are there any members of the public in Sacramento that would like to make a public comment?
Are there any members of the public present who would like to make a public comment? Madam Chair, there are no members of the public at this time. I will pass the meeting back to you.
Thank you. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
We are open for public comment for items not on the agenda. If you'd like to make a comment via WebEx, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. For our dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand. And for our mobile device users, you have 3 different screens and only one of them has a hand button. So you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... and cycle through the 3 different screens in order to find your hand. We're going to give everyone 2 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 30-second warning before your time expires. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment via WebEx, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you, moderator. We will now proceed to item number 5, regarding reading of the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau mission statement. Terry, can you please read the Bureau's mission statement?
Our mission is to protect consumers through licensing, consumer education, and enforcement of the Professional Fiduciaries Act, and promote and uphold competency and ethical standards across the profession. Madam Chair, I'll return the meeting back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion from advisory committee members? At this time, I do not see any comments or discussion from advisory committee members. I would like to invite members of the public attending this meeting in Sacramento to provide comments on this agenda item. Terry, are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to make a comment?
Are there any members of the public present who would like to make a comment? At this time, I see no members of the public who would like to make a comment. Madam Chair, I return the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Terry. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comment of any individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 5. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment via WebEx on agenda item 5. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you, moderator, and thank you, Terry. We will now proceed to agenda item number 6, discussion and approval of the advisory committee meetings from September 11th, 2024. Are there any suggested edits to the September 11th, 2024 meeting minutes by the committee members? As I am not seeing or hearing of any suggested edits by the committee members, is there a motion to approve the September 11th, 2024 minutes and to allow Bureau staff to make non-substantive edits if needed?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any, are there any questions or comments from the advisory committee members regarding the motion? As there are no questions or comments from advisory committee members, I would like to invite members of the public attending the meeting in Sacramento to provide comments about this agenda item. Terry, are there members of the public in Sacramento who would like to make a comment?
Are there any members from the public present who would like to make a comment? Madam Chair, there are no members of the public who would like to make a comment at this time. I return the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Terry. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from any individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
We are open for public comment on the motion for agenda item 6. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, thank you, moderator. At this time, may I ask Angela, if you could please repeat the motion and call the roll for a vote.
Yes, the motion has been made to approve the minutes as written and allow the Bureau to make non-substantive changes as if needed for non-substantive edits if needed. As I call your name, if you approve, please say yes. Bertha Sanchez Hayden,
Yes.
Elizabeth Ichikawa,
Yes.
Joyce Anthony,
Yes.
Linda Ng,
Yes.
Alfred Torgano,
Yes.
and James Moore is absent. So we have 5 yeses to approve the minutes as written and allow the Bureau to make non-substantive edits if needed. And with 5 votes, that is approved and it will be posted to the website. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes and the minutes are adopted. Thank you again, Angela. We will now proceed to agenda item number 7. I would like to invite Karina Moreno from the Executive Office to present an update on behalf of the Department of Consumer Affairs Executive Office.
Good morning. My name is Karina Moreno of the California Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for your opportunity to join me today. On behalf of the department, I'd like to thank all members who serve to protect the public. First is the DEI update. DCA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee met on October 25th, 2024. The committee elected Reggie Varghese as chair and Marlon McManus as vice chair. With Reggie and Marlon's years of experience and sincere commitment, we greatly look forward to accomplishing many DEI initiatives under their leadership. Next is the new unconscious bias training for members. DCA is updating its current unveiling unconscious bias training to focus on members, your critical roles, and how unconscious bias can affect your decision-making authority. The training will be self-paced and available in DCA's online learning management system, LMS. We anticipate launching this new training in early 2025, and members will be required to take it annually. As a reminder, DCA offers over 20 online DEI courses in its learning management system. While these courses are not mandatory, members and leaders are strongly encouraged to take these trainings as you are instrumental in leading department-wide change. Next is Military Licensing Resources webinar. To support and maximize outreach to our military community, DCA hosted a second live webinar on November 21st, 2024, to share information about military licensing resources. During this webinar, attendees learned about licensing resources available to members of the military and their spouses or domestic partners. The webinar featured a demonstration of DCA's federal professional license portal and state registration process and a Q&A session. Next is the season of giving. We're officially in the season of giving, and DCA is honored to join in the annual charitable campaigns, DCA's annual turkey drive and the state's Our Promise campaign. Turkey drive. On November 13th, DCA held its annual turkey drive, collecting over 2,000 pounds of food, including 110 turkeys, to help local families in need celebrate Thanksgiving and feed their families through Sacramento-based Joey's Food Locker and the Natomas Unified School District. Donations collected were available to families during Joey's Food Locker Turkey Drive on November 22nd. Last year, DCA's employees were part of the reason 769 families, 3,315 people celebrated Thanksgiving and fed their families. DCA was excited to once again make a difference in the lives of others and support the community. The giving spirit will continue, and DCA will join the state employees food drive and place boxes at various office locations to collect non-perishable foods, directly benefiting a local food bank. Our Promise campaign launched, State Employees Giving at Work campaign. Every year through the Our Promise California State Employees Charitable campaign, state employees, including members, have the opportunity to support the nonprofit causes they are passionate about through payroll giving or one-time donations. These contributions have a positive impact on our communities and another way for DCA to show it cares for California. This year's campaign is led by Monica Vargas, Deputy Director of Communications, and Karen Navarro, Assistant Deputy Director of Communications. DCA's campaign officially launched on November 18th and runs through December 31st. In the meantime, please contact Board and Bureau Relations with any questions or if you would like information on how you can give. Again, thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I'm happy to answer any questions from the advisory committee.
Thank you for the update. At this time, are there any questions or comments from the advisory committee? As I'm not seeing any questions or hearing any questions or comments from the advisory committee, I would like to invite members of the public attending the meeting in Sacramento to provide comments about this agenda item. Terry, are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to make a comment?
Are there any members of the public present who would like to make a comment? Madam Chair, there are no members of the public present who would like to make a comment. I return the meeting to you.
Thank you. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from any individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
We are now taking public comment on the director's update. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder to our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you, moderator, and thank you again, Karina, for providing us that update today. We will now proceed to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 8, the budget report. I would like to invite Brendan Vu from the Department of Consumer Affairs Budget Office to present an update on the Bureau's budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. My name is Brendan Vu, and I am a budget analyst with the DCA Budget Office. I'm here alongside Nicole Dragoo, the budget manager. I want to thank the Advisory Committee and Bureau for allowing me to present on Agenda Item 8, the Bureau's expenditure projections and fund condition statement. First, I'm going to start with the Bureau's expenditures, page 17 of your materials. These projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 3. This report includes 2023-24 actual expenditures in the green, as well as 2024-25 budgeted and projected expenditures in blue and orange. As we move to the end of the document, you will see the Bureau had a beginning base budget of a little over $1.1 million and is projected to spend a total of approximately $809,000, creating a reversion to the Bureau's fund of approximately $314,000. with the reversion percentage of 28.06%. The next document I will be going over is the Bureau's revenue projections, page 18 of your materials. This report includes receipts collected through September and provides the projected revenue to year end. I will go further into the projections as we transition to the next slide. The next slide, page 19 of your materials, is the Bureau's fund condition statement. As a reminder, we read this document top to bottom, left to right. The left column is the Bureau's prior year 2023-24 actuals. It shows the Bureau began 2023-24 with a balance of $256,000, and the Bureau collected $842,000 in revenues, with $141,000 from initial fees, $664,000 from license renewals, and $37,000 collected from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The Bureau expended $797,000, which includes $46,000 in direct draws to the fund for statewide pro rata and pension payments. The Bureau closed 2023-24 with a reserve balance of $301,000 or 4.1 months in reserve. For current year 2024-25, the Bureau projects revenues of just over $1.1 million, with $117,000 projected from initial license fees, $977,000 from renewal fees, and $32,000 from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The Bureau's 2024-25 expenditures are currently based on the Budget Act, with FM3 projections at $878,000 between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the Bureau with a fund balance of just over $549,000 or 5.4 months in reserve. The Budget Office will continue to monitor the Bureau's revenue and expenditures and report back to the Bureau with monthly expenditure projections as we continue to close fiscal months in the current fiscal year. A few things to note for the board's fund condition is that the fund condition is a snapshot in time. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years is a result of personnel service adjustments. These include general salary increases, as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The Budget Office includes a conservative ongoing 3% increase to expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these incremental adjustments. Lastly, I would like to note to the Bureau that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the Bureau's need for additional resources, which would create cost pressure on the fund. The Budget Office will continue to monitor the Bureau's fund condition statement and keep an open line of communication with the Bureau Chief for any future needs or expectations. That concludes my presentation. Again, thank you for allowing me to present at today's meeting, and I will now be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for that update. Are there any questions or comments from committee members?
Yeah, this is Linda Ng. I just like to ask for clarification, on your second page, on the revenue projection report. I know you probably have mentioned about other revenue, but would you please explain what is other revenue? What does it consist of?
Yes. So in the other revenue category, those include revenue such as canceled warrants, as well as dishonored check fees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any additional comments or questions by committee members? As no other committee members have indicated questions or comments, I will now ask, I would like to invite members of the public attending the meeting in Sacramento to provide comments about this agenda item. Terry, are there members of the public in Sacramento who would like to make a comment?
Are there any members of the public present who would like to make a comment regarding this agenda item? Madam Chair, there are no members of the public present who would like to make a comment. I return the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Terry. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from any individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
We are now open for public comment on agenda item 8. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And it looks like our first request is coming from Jerry Desmond. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. I'll give you 2 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning before your time expires.
This is Jerry Desmond, the advocate for Professional Fiduciary Association of California, PFAC. Comment is regarding the...
Jerry, we're unable to hear you in here.
Jerry, is it possible to get closer to your microphone?
Hello?
Hello. How does that to the room?
It's still pretty quiet.
I'll try screaming.
We'll barely hear your scream. Thank you.
Okay, it'll be brief anyway, but thank you. This is Jerry Desmond, the advocate with PFAC, the Professional Fiduciary Association of California. And our comment is, as I think we chatted in the previous advisory committee meeting, with the increase in licensure fees, I know the Bureau shares with us the perspective we really are hoping that the licensed population will not be diminished. And so I note, we note the projected revenue from renewal fees is at $977,000, and we are curious and would like to monitor whether that is the current renewals are in line with the anticipated budget. What we're concerned about is that there might be a significant decrease in the licensed population because of the fee increase. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And as a note to everyone, as part of your mute and unmute button, there is a drop-down menu, and you can go to audio settings and change the volume at which your microphone and speakers operate separately. With that said, there are no other requests for public comment via WebEx.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you to Mr. Desmond for providing public comment. We will now I want to thank Brendan for that update, and we will now proceed to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 9. The legislative office providing the update. Currently, there are no assembly or Senate bills related to the Bureau for discussion. Susan Kilcrease from the Department of Consumers Affairs Legislative Affairs Office is available for any general questions or comments from committee members. I will take a moment to provide Ms. Kilcrease an opportunity to come to the mic before opening up the floor.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alice Bordekin-Nuke. I'm a ledge manager at the DCA Legislative Affairs Division. This is Susan Kilcrease, our legislative analyst. I'm here today to give a short update on legislative timelines in the coming year. The governor has acted on all 2024 bills as of October, and the California legislature has been on fall interim since September. They just had their first organizational floor session last week on December 2nd to convene the 2025-2026 regular session, introduce newly elected assembly members and senators, and vote on House rules. Last week, also some new bills were introduced, but none have to do with the Bureau. And the Legislative Affairs Division will be monitoring all newly introduced bills and let you know if any impact you. On January 1st, 2025, bills passed and signed in 2024 will take effect unless a particular bill has a different timeline. On January 6, 2025, the legislature will reconvene and they must submit the budget to the governor's office by January 10. The bulk of new bills will be introduced by February 21st, the introduction deadline. That's all I have for you today. We're available for any questions or comments related to legislation.
Thank you to you both. Are there any questions or comments from the advisory committee members? As I'm not seeing any indication of questions or comments from advisory committee members, I'd like to invite members of the public attending the meeting in Sacramento to provide comments about this agenda item. Terry, are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to make a comment?
Are there any members of the public present who would like to make a comment? Madam Chair, there are no members of the public who would like to make a public comment. I return the meeting to you.
Thank you, Terry. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from any individuals attending this meeting via WebEx. Moderator?
We are now open for public comment on agenda item 9. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand. And for our mobile device users, please remember you have 3 different screens and you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment via WebEx, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you so much, moderator. We will now proceed. We'll now proceed to item agenda number 10, Bureau updates. Terry, can you please present the Bureau updates?
Good morning, everyone. I'll start with the application licensing and enforcement statistics. This is for fiscal year 24-25, the first quarter, which is July 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2024. Total licenses issued since July 1st of 2008 is 1,461. The number of licenses by status as of September 30th, 2024, we have 859 active licenses, 12 inactive, and 21 retired. Applications. Initial applications received for fiscal year 24-25 to date, through September 30th, are 28. Licenses issued, 26. Processing time for completion of applications, 23 days from the receipt to approval to sit for an exam, 6 days from passing the exam to issuance of the license. Renewals. Renewals processed through September 30th, 2024 for this quarter, 232. Processing timeline, 23 days. For enforcement statistics, we received 50 complaints in the first quarter of this fiscal year. We have closed 0 complaints that were received fiscal year 2020 through 2021, 0 complaints fiscal year 21 through 2022. Open complaints received fiscal year 22 to 23, we closed 3. Open complaints received fiscal year 23 to 24, we closed 21. Open complaints received fiscal year 24 to 25 this first quarter, we've closed 11. That totals 35 complaints closed. Average days to close complaints, 153. Complaints pending. We have 1 complaint pending closure for fiscal year 20 to 21. We have 1 complaint pending closure for fiscal year 21 through 22. We currently have 20 open complaints received fiscal year 22 to 23. We currently have 52 open complaints received fiscal year 23 to 24. And we currently have 39 open complaints received fiscal year 24 to 25 this first quarter. That totals 113. We issued 2 citations, and we have 1 case initiated with the Attorney General's office. That concludes statistics. I want to address the Bureau's efforts to increase licensing numbers. We have implemented new processes that we believe will aid us in encouraging new licensees to apply. We have an abandonment of application process where applicants who have been approved by the Bureau to register for the examination but have not registered, the Bureau sends a letter to the applicants 3 months prior to the date the application was deemed abandoned. And so far, we had 1 application that thanked us for reminding them to go ahead and apply for the examination because they had forgot there was a timeline before their application would be considered abandoned. For expired licenses, we've implemented a process where Angela Quadra, she runs a report once a month. After a license has expired, the Bureau sends a letter to the licensee by email or mail with items needed to renew the license. This 15-day timeline allows for all items, payments postmarked by the last day of the month to be processed by cashiering and the license renewed. If items are not received and the license is not renewed, the enforcement analyst will research to determine if the file needs to be moved to Bureau management for possible disciplinary action. Our Office of Public Affairs has developed an 8-minute video to post on our website, which is on YouTube, that will be released in the next, we estimate 2 weeks. And that video is an advertisement for applicants to apply for a license. It gives all the specifics and requirements needed to apply to be a professional fiduciary. So we ask you all to look forward to that video in the next few weeks on our website. In regards to outreach events, I had the opportunity to attend an outreach event on October 8th, 2024. I was invited to the event by our Madam Chair. It was the 2024 Master Plan for Aging Day of Action. This was an outreach conference focused on encouraging a shared commitment to build a California for all ages and disabilities and to prioritize the health and well-being of older Californians, people with disabilities, and our vulnerable population. I had the pleasure of listening to multiple awesome speakers, including our Madam Chair. We heard from Governor Gavin Newsom, the Secretary of the California Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, and the keynote speaker was the Secretary of the United States Department of Health and Human Services. One takeaway I received from that conference was, let's better support the aged and disabled by providing the services they expect. Well, PFB staff continuously strive to safeguard the well-being of consumers receiving professional fiduciary services. We gladly perform our duties as representatives of the Department of Consumer Affairs because this agency is a mission-driven agency focused on working together to protect all California consumers. And I would like to publicly thank my staff for all the hard work they put in to keep this bureau running. We have an e-newsletter that will be posted on our website, we expect in the next 30 days. The newsletter has a lot of exciting information. We have an Ask Angie section. We have a holiday recipe you can take a look at. But one of the most exciting aspects is we are featuring our member, Ms. Linda Ng, in that newsletter. And so there's a section called Get to Know Your Advisory Committee Member. So we ask you all to take a look at our website in the next month or so, and that newsletter will be on there for all of you to enjoy. I would like to speak about AB 1262, which was approved by the governor and filed with the Secretary of State in October of 2023. This bill had multiple amendments and added additional sections to the Business and Professions Code, but some of the amendments are relevant to our members. So I would like to speak on a few sections of that bill, and I encourage you to take a look at our newsletter because we'll provide very detailed information in the newsletter about the various sections and how it affects our bureau. What section is most important to the members is Business and Professions Code 6511, which was amended to allow the governor to appoint committee members by staggering terms to ensure a quorum will be available at all meetings. And so prior to this change, all committee members were appointed on the same day and all terms expired on the same day, which could cause meetings to be canceled if there is no quorum of the committee available to meet. So this change will benefit the public by lessening the chance of committee members not being able to meet due to a lack of quorum. Another section of that particular bill was BPC, which is Business and Professions Code 6532. That was amended to specify that only a person who holds a current and active license from the Bureau is authorized to identify as a licensed professional fiduciary. We had a section change to BPC 6534. That was amended to remove the requirement for the Bureau to make available to the public and publish on the internet any personal client information related to reports of removals or resignations. The Bureau is no longer required to provide the case name, court location, and case number to the public. BPC 6541.1 was amended to authorize the Bureau to reinstate a canceled license if specified requirements are met. BPC 6542 was amended to require the Bureau to deny an application to place a license in retired status if the license is subject to an outstanding order of the Bureau, if it's suspended, placed on probation, revoked, or otherwise restricted by the Bureau, or subject to disciplinary action under this chapter. There was a change to BPC 6543 that was added to allow a person whose license has been revoked or surrendered to petition the Bureau for reinstatement. It requires the director to rule on a petition for reinstatement of a revoked, surrendered, suspended, or otherwise disciplined license, and authorizes the director to impose any terms and conditions the director reasonably deems appropriate. BPC 6561.5 was added to require licensees to respond to any written inquiry related to the investigation of a complaint within 30 days from the request from the Bureau. Failure to do so would constitute a cause for disciplinary action. BPC 6562.5 was added to require licensees to notify the Bureau in writing of their intent not to renew a license and submit a final annual statement demonstrating they are no longer subject to licensure. Additionally, the licensee is required to work with the Bureau to resolve any discrepancies. And finally, BPC 6581.1 was added to specify that aiding or abetting, combining or conspiring, allowing one's license to be used by an unlicensed person, or acting as an agent, partner, or associate of an unlicensed person to evade the Professional Fiduciaries Act is cause for disciplinary action. Going on to the strategic plan, we have no new updates regarding our strategic plan. And finally, I would like to remind everyone that we are on social media. The Bureau is on Facebook and Twitter. So we ask all individuals who have not yet signed up for, our mailing list, please do so by going to our website. At this time, I will open it up to ask if there's any questions from any of the advisory committee members. Madam Chair, I return the meeting to you.
Thank you, Terry, for that thorough update. And I just, again, want to echo on behalf of the advisory committee, thanks for all the work the staff has done this year and your work, especially with the transition in staffing at the Bureau. At this time, I would like to ask to invite members of the public attending the meeting in Sacramento to provide comments about this agenda item. Terry, are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to provide a comment?
Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment regarding agenda item number 10? Madam Chair, there are no members of the public who would like to make a comment. I return the meeting to you.
Thank you. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from any individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you, moderator. And thank you, Terry, again for that update. At this time, we will proceed to our next agenda item number 11. I would like to invite Helen Joffrey from the Department of Consumers Affairs Legal Office, SULO, and Kathy Scott, analysts from the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau Enforcement Unit, to present the Bureau's enforcement process.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just give me 1 second to get these switched. Good morning again. My name is Sue Lowe, and I am an enforcement analyst for the Bureau. The Bureau's enforcement team, which consists of me and the Bureau's newest analyst, Kathy Scott, along with the Bureau's legal counsel, Helen Joffrey, will be giving an overview of the complaint and enforcement process. Business and Professions Code Section 6580 requires the Bureau to investigate all complaints that are received, including complaints that are initiated internally by the Bureau. The Bureau also has authority to take action against a license if violations of the Professional Fiduciaries Act, also known as the Act, have occurred. The Bureau mainly receives complaints by email or mail, but we also receive complaints by fax, over the phone, or complaints may be dropped off in person, but these are not as common. The Bureau also has the ability to initiate complaints on its own if it comes across information that prompts further investigation. The Bureau's complaint and investigation process is not subject to public disclosure. Therefore, this presentation will only give an overview of the complaint and investigation process. Administrative and disciplinary actions taken by the Bureau are available to the public, and this information is posted on the Bureau's website at www.fiduciary.ca.gov under the Bureau Actions section. This information is also available on the individual licensees page through the Department of Consumer Affairs license verification search, which may be accessed at search.dca.ca.gov. The Bureau has authority to take action against a license for violations of the Act or other laws related to the duties and functions of a professional fiduciary. Administrative actions are citations, which may include a fine and/or an order of abatement. Citations are usually issued for less egregious acts, such as a failure to complete renewal requirements. Citations will be discussed in more detail later in this presentation. The types of disciplinary actions the Bureau can take include issuing a letter of public reprimand, placing a license on probation, a suspension of a license, revocation, or accepting a surrender of license while charges are pending. The Bureau's legal counsel will present in a little bit about the disciplinary process. While the Bureau has authority to take action against a license for violations, there are certain things that the Bureau cannot do. Specifically, the Bureau cannot overturn, enforce, or determine a violation of a court order, remove a professional fiduciary from an appointed position, amend, enforce, or interpret the terms of a legal document or proceeding, direct the administration of a trust or estate, or direct payments from a trust or estate. These types of actions fall under the purview of the probate court. The Bureau can also not issue criminal convictions against a licensee. And this is because the Bureau's disciplinary process is completed through an administrative proceeding, not a criminal proceeding, which has different legal requirements. If there are complaints that allege criminal acts, the matter should be referred to law enforcement and must proceed through the criminal court for a criminal conviction. And now I will turn this over to Kathy for the complaint intake process.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Scott. I'm an analyst here at the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau. Let's take a look at the complaint intake process. When the Bureau receives a complaint, the first thing to determine is, does the complaint fall under the Bureau's jurisdiction? Some complaints don't fall under the Bureau's jurisdiction. For example, if the complaint is about an attorney licensed by the California State Bar, this complaint would be non-jurisdictional pursuant to Business and Professions Code 6530. Another example, if a complaint is about an individual who is acting in a fiduciary capacity for family members, this complaint would be non-jurisdictional as these individuals do not need to be licensed. Complaints against businesses and industries, not regulated by the Bureau, such as banks or mortgage lenders, are also non-jurisdictional. The Bureau would then refer the complainant to the proper department or agency. Complaints within the Bureau's jurisdiction involve licensed professional fiduciaries operating as conservators, guardians, trustees, agents under durable power of attorney for finance or healthcare, and personal representatives of the decedent's estate. Jurisdictional complaints also involve unlicensed individuals that are required to be licensed in order to operate in the above-mentioned capacities as specified in Business and Professions Code 6501. Next slide. For complaints that do not fall under the Bureau's jurisdiction, the analyst will then determine what the complaint is about. The intake process involves a preliminary analysis to determine what the allegations are, what the possible code violations are, and what documents or information may be needed from the complainant, as well as a review of the complaint history. An acknowledgement letter is sent to the complainant within 10 days of receipt of the complaint and may include a request for additional documents. Now I will turn this back over to Sue to look at the investigation process.
So the Bureau's role is to conduct an objective and impartial investigation. Many of the complaints that the Bureau receives has a long history of conflict or issues where there are a lot of emotions involved, and the Bureau has to remain impartial and review all of the facts of the matter. Again, the Bureau's investigation process is not subject to public disclosure, so I can only provide some general information. When the analyst is assigned to the complaint, the analyst will conduct a thorough review of the complaint, the supporting documents, and the relevant statutes and regulations that may have been violated. This process is similar to what is done during the complaint intake process, but this phase involves more in-depth review and analysis. At this time, the analyst may request additional documents from the complainant or the licensee, and the investigation process may also involve interviews with complainants, the licensee, and witnesses to obtain statements and other supporting information. At the conclusion of each investigation, the analyst will complete a detailed report that outlines the allegations, the facts of the case, and an analysis of the finding of whether the allegations are substantiated or not, and any of the documentation that supports the findings. If a violation is determined, the analyst will also note the specific statutes and regulations that were violated and prepare the evidence. The investigation report will also include the analyst's recommendation to the bureau chief, or in this case, the program manager, for the outcome of the matter, which may be a closure for no violation or insufficient evidence, or the recommendation to issue a citation or refer the matter to the Attorney General's office for discipline. Once the investigation has concluded, the complainant and licensee are sent a letter notifying them of the outcome. So the most common outcomes for investigations are no violation, which means the licensee did not do anything that violated the laws and regulations pertaining to professional fiduciaries. There's insufficient evidence, which means there's not enough information or supporting facts to substantiate the allegations. A complaint that is closed due to insufficient evidence is not the same as a finding of no violation. Sometimes complaints are also closed because there's no response from the complainant. And then the Bureau may also, the outcome may also be that the Bureau can substantiate one or more allegations and determine that a citation should be issued, or for more egregious acts, the Bureau may determine that disciplinary action may be warranted, in which case the matter is referred to the Attorney General's office for discipline. So some things to consider regarding investigations and complaints. The time frame to conclude an investigation of the complaint will vary based on the complexity of the complaint. Many complaints have multiple layers and a lot of information to go through, while some are more straightforward and may be completed much quicker. While complaints may have similarities, there are no two complaints that are exactly the same. While there may be similarities, there are many factors that differ, which means outcomes may also be different. And just because a similar complaint may have resulted in a specific outcome does not mean other complaints will receive the same determination. Each investigation and complaint must stand on its own merit, which means supporting information is applied individually to each complaint. There are also many factors that may impact an investigation. The complainant may refuse to cooperate with the investigation. The licensee may be non-responsive or refuse to cooperate. Licensees who fail to cooperate with the Bureau's investigation, fail to provide requested information and documents, or fail to provide true and accurate information or responses may be subject to further discipline. The Bureau may also request documents from complainants and licensees and needs to allow sufficient time for the production of those documents. Sometimes the complaint may not have sufficient information that allows the Bureau to follow up with the matter. And then sometimes there's just not enough information to move forward with a complaint. And now I will turn this over to Helen Jeffrey, the Bureau's legal counsel, for the next section.
Good morning. So due process, what does it require? When the government, and in this case, the Bureau, has issued a license after an applicant has met all the requirements, the person is then entitled to that license. And so before the government can take that license away or discipline that license or put any restrictions on that license, the licensee is entitled to what's known as due process. So that is the notice that there is an issue against their license and the opportunity to speak and be heard about that issue, and then to be part of the process as well as the evidence in order to proceed against either disciplining or limiting that license. So, and as we said, or maybe we didn't say, I apologize, but the enforcement documents are, when they're finalized, are available to the public. And so the person has a right to know that that's going to happen. So the basics, who's involved? Normally, the Bureau functions as one solid unit in which we have the bureau chief or acting, we have the analysts, we have the licensees, we have the director, and everybody's in the same world, and they're all working for the consumer. But when a licensee is accused, the staff becomes separate from the director because the director then becomes the formal decision maker, and that the director, or in this case, the director's designee, has to be a neutral decision maker. So the analysts and the bureau chief or acting bureau chief become what you might think of as the plaintiff, or it's in a criminal matter, it would be a prosecutor, but this wouldn't be a criminal matter. And then the licensee becomes the respondent or the person who is going to defend themselves. As the attorney for the Bureau, I go with the director or the director's designee to advise them, which is why I am not permitted to hear anything or be a part of the investigation process because I need to also remain neutral. So at that point, either the staff are, when it's, for example, it's a citation, the staff are handling it individually, or once it escalates up to an appeal or a accusation, then they are assisted by the Attorney General. The documents. So as we discussed, we have a citation, which may include an order of abatement, an administrative fine, or both. An accusation in which we are going to take additional disciplinary action against a licensee. Generally, that is always the maximum, which is revocation. And we also allow for lesser discipline to be included or to be as an alternative as appropriate. A statement of issues is issued against an applicant or an unlicensed individual if they are, or sorry, I apologize, an applicant who is an unlicensed individual, so they are not subject to all of our requirements, but they've not met the requirements to become a licensee. If they appeal that decision, then a statement of issues laying out why they did not meet the requirements is issued, and then that applicant is then provided the due process of a chance to be heard. When someone is offered the opportunity to be heard, they are heard by an administrative law judge who is a neutral party, who is able to take evidence, to weigh evidence, and to determine what is appropriate to be in or out of the record for both the licensee and the applicant and the Bureau. And then that is what the director or the director's designee will then review to make a final decision. So the proposed decision is is written by the administrative law judge, who is a neutral party and is only writing about the admitted evidence. A stipulated settlement is almost always permitted, if not always, and that's when the licensee and the Bureau are able to come to an agreement to resolve the matter without proceeding to a hearing. And just like you see on TV, when the parties agree, they know exactly what's going to happen. If they go before an administrative law judge, they do not. It will be up to the administrative law judge to make that determination, and then the director to review and either approve or otherwise adjust or review the information. So citations are issued by the bureau chief or the acting, and it must be in writing. It usually has the order of abatement, which is how to correct this citation. An administrative fine can be issued for up to $5,000. Failure to comply with the order of abatement or the fine can result in disciplinary action for now essentially disobeying a citation. And then the cited person does have a right to contest that citation, at which point the issue will then go to the Deputy Attorney General to assist staff to present the matter before an administrative law judge. We can also do an informal hearing. So that's where, similar to a stipulated settlement in which the licensee and the Bureau can meet informally and determine if they can resolve this, or the licensee can bring forth some information to adjust the analysis of the citation. When there is an informal conference that's requested, it must be held within 60 days from when PFB receives the written request. After the informal conference is held, then the Bureau can decide to uphold, modify, or dismiss the citation, and then a notice will be given to the licensee, and the licensee can either then accept the decision or submit a request for a formal hearing. If the citation is held, that is deemed the final order. You cannot ask for another informal conference, but this is going to be the final decision of the Bureau before, is going to be the final decision of the Bureau. If it's modified, then the original citation is considered withdrawn and a new citation is issued. And for both of those decisions, a formal hearing may be requested in writing within 30 days in order for it to proceed before an administrative law judge. When a citation is contested, there is a formal administrative hearing. You can also at any time stipulate to a decision between the two parties as it goes to a formal hearing if you determine in negotiations that that will be the best position for both the Bureau and the licensee. However, if not, it goes before an administrative law judge who will issue a proposed decision on the citation, and then that proposed decision goes before the director for a final administrative decision. So the disciplinary process starts with either an accusation against the licensee, and let me clarify, a citation is a type of action against the licensee or the applicant and will be posted publicly. However, for this particular Bureau, it's not necessarily considered formal disciplinary action. Typically, that's reserved for accusations and statements of issues. It's a minor adjustment or a minor clarification, but a citation, much like you would get a citation for speeding in front of a cop, isn't quite the same as being arrested and going to potentially jail and the whole process. Some boards and bureaus do consider citations as part of the formal disciplinary process, but that is why this is separated out. So a higher level would be an accusation for licensees or a statement of issues for an applicant to start the disciplinary process. The respondent has 15 days to file a notice of defense after the accusation or statement of issues is submitted, like mailed to the licensee. And if you fail to file a notion of defense within 15 days, you have waived the right to a hearing, but not necessarily the ability to have a hearing until a default decision is issued by the director. But you have, that will be an optional of the director rather than a mandate. You only have a mandate to be heard before an ALJ within 15 days. So once you request a formal hearing, as we've discussed, you can potentially settle. You can go forth and get a proposed decision, or you do have the right to not participate, or if you know you have no defense, you can just default the decision, and at which point that's what closes the administrative process. The stipulated settlement generally is a less expensive option, not only for the Bureau, but also for the licensee, because we can come up with an agreement and potentially only the Bureau can only charge actual costs. So the actual costs of enforcement are a lot less than the actual costs of enforcement and prosecution before the ALJ and hiring a deputy attorney general. So the parties can stip to what we can do. They can also develop proposed terms because as a contract, the two parties can come up with whatever agreement they wish and they feel is fair. And if they both agree, then that is the decision that will be submitted to the director for a final decision. The director can determine that the terms are not appropriate and return it back for negotiation or potentially a formal hearing. But if the two parties agree, generally the director will adopt the stipulated settlement, and that will become the discipline that is set forth for the licensee or the applicant. A proposed decision, as we've discussed, is a hearing where the ALJ, who is employed by the Office of Administrative Hearings, hears the matter. It takes evidence. The law judge will also consider any objections, any testimony that is presented by any witnesses that are brought forth. Both parties have a right to examine and cross-examine. The Bureau is represented by the Attorney General, and the respondent can appear on their own or be represented by an attorney at their own expense. And then the ALJ reviews the hearing. They write up a proposed decision that determines whether or not the Bureau has met clear and convincing evidence, because the Bureau has the burden to prove that the discipline requires discipline. The proposed decision suggests a level of discipline that is covered by the laws and statutes that are appropriate to determine what is the exact appropriate discipline for the matter. For example, the Bureau can ask for up to revocation for failure to update your address, but generally that level of discipline is not appropriate unless it's a continuing and ongoing issue. But it is within the laws to allow for revocation, but the administrative law judge will determine if that is an appropriate level of discipline. They may also include a cost recovery. By law, the Bureau has a right to request for a cost recovery so that licensees in general are not burdened by the actions and the disciplinary costs necessary to enforce a licensee that is not following the requirements. And so they can ask for cost for recovery of the investigation and the cost to hire the DAG and proceed with the matter before a court. The same is true for a licensing case where a statement of issues is issued against a licensee, but generally cost recovery is not available because they've not yet been inducted into the family of professional fiduciary licensees. So clear and convincing evidence. When your car gets scratched and you're having a big dispute with your neighbor, you know the neighbor probably did it. The other neighbors know that neighbor probably did it. The cops probably know that the neighbor did it. But it's not a matter of what you know, but what you can prove. Because the person has a right to their license, and we have the burden to prove it's a professional license, and so therefore we must meet clear and convincing evidence that this is the person who violated this act, and this is indeed a violation of the act. So you will occasionally have a licensee where it doesn't quite meet the evidence. And so, or the burden of the evidence. This is a very strong evidence. It's not as strong as a criminal level of beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's very close. It's up there. And so if we have information where they probably did it, we do not meet that burden because we don't have a more likely than not standard. We have a clear and convincing standard. So this is why a lot of investigations, even if they are closed, remain confidential, because potentially a series of discipline can be used, or a series of actions can be used, whereas one didn't have not quite enough evidence. 1 + 2 may meet the level of clear and convincing evidence so that we can discipline the licensee. If we were to issue an accusation against a licensee and did not meet clear and convincing evidence, we could no longer use that information to demonstrate that a licensee has violated the act. So if everything is kept confidential and everything is kept potentially for a future date, then that allows the Bureau maximum flexibility to make sure that the public is protected. So a proposed decision, the ALJ issues a proposed decision within 30 days discussing the factual and legal basis for the decisions, any legal conclusions, the facts that were presented, credibility determinations, whether or not the the person claiming that they didn't know anything about the law when they're required to know about the law because they're a licensee, probably not very credible. They will make credibility determinations, issue a proposed decision to the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau, who then processes it for the director to make a final decision. Under the government code, the director or director's designee can adopt the decision as is, make minor or technical changes to the proposed decision, reduce the proposed penalty and adopt the rest of the proposed decision, reject and decide the case on the record, in which they will review the transcripts of the hearing and the evidence that was presented at the hearing. At that time, the parties can also present oral or written argument at the director's decision. Typically, we would go with a written argument. So the representative for the bureau staff and bureau chief, which would be the deputy attorney general, and the representative or the respondent themselves will each submit a letter in order to add to any kind of arguments or anything that had happened at the hearing, provide any additional information that the director may need in order to review the case on the record and determine that a correct or an incorrect decision was proposed. Or they can reject and remand back to that ALJ to take additional evidence on a particular matter. Many times it may be the cost evaluation. We are required to review what's called the Zuckerman factors in order to determine if there was an appropriate level of costs that were issued. And if the administrative law judge fails to do so, we can send that back for the ALJ to make an analysis of costs. Or if, for example, a licensee is disciplined or proposed disciplined for causes 1, 2, and 3, and the ALJ did not address number 3 or take evidence on number 3, we can remand that back to the administrative law judge to take additional evidence on number 3 and issue a decision. And a default decision is issued when the respondent fails to file a notice of defense within 15 days or before a default decision is issued. Or if they fail to appear at a hearing or fail to request a formal hearing at all. So at that point, the director may take action without further notice from the respondent and accept it as the respondent decided they did not want to accept their right to be heard, and issue a default decision which will close the case. And generally what is issued is the highest level of discipline that was noticed to the respondent. So, do we have any questions about the enforcement process overview from the members? Seeing none, Chair, do you mind if I go ahead and process this for public comment, or would you like to handle?
No, please do.
Thank you. If we have any members of the public that would like to be heard, we would like to say that comments, as discussed at the beginning of the meeting, are limited to 2 minutes each. And we request that you take the stand one at a time. We can determine, or once, not one at a time, only comment once. If we determine that comments are within a reasonable limit, the chair can then decide if anybody would like to have a second chance to make a comment. But please note, as we discussed, all parties must remain neutral, and it permits a licensee to be granted defenses if their matter is heard before the public at large, or on, as this is being recorded, for all eternity. That can create defenses that will limit an ability for the Bureau to proceed against discipline. And also that will cause me, as the attorney for the Bureau, to be conflicted out. And as the attorney for the Bureau, I have the most knowledge and the best ability to advise the director on whether or not the evidence was fair and neutral at the hearing upon reviewing the administrative law judge's decision. So therefore, we cannot accept any comments that are about a specific incident or event or complaint or potential complaint that can become before the Bureau in order to remain as effective as possible in order to discipline a potentially wayward licensee or applicant. And so with that, we can accept, however, questions about the generic enforcement process. So is there anyone in public that would like to present a comment? Seeing none here in Sacramento, moderator, could you open it up for public comment from the online audience?
We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder to our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Thank you. Chair, at this time, I do believe that that completes our presentation. If you would like to take the meeting back, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. And I would just like to extend gratitude for everybody who just presented that very thorough presentation to help the public better understand and grasp the different levels and nuances of the enforcement process presentation. Thank you again for that presentation. I will now proceed to the next agenda item. Angela, what items have you recorded from our meeting today for consideration for inclusion on future agenda?
Right there, thank you. Yes, I have not recorded any items that were requested for future agenda.
Thank you, Angela. Are there any comments or questions from advisory committee members? Or are there any items that advisory committee members would like to add? Okay. At this time, I would like to invite members of the public attending the meeting in Sacramento to provide comments about this agenda item. Terry, are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to make a comment?
Are there any members present who would like to make a comment regarding agenda item number 12? Madam Chair, there are no members of the public who would like to make a comment. I return the meeting to you.
Thank you. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
We are open for public comment via WebEx on future agenda items. If you'd like to make a suggestion, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes. Thank you. We will now proceed to item number 13 on the agenda, future meeting dates. The advisory committee meetings are scheduled for Wednesday, March 12th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Additionally, the Bureau has scheduled the meetings on the following dates for the calendar year 2025, and the meetings will be held with an in-person location, by teleconference via WebEx events and webcast. The meetings will be held on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. Are there any questions or comments from advisory committee members? As there are no questions or comments from advisory committee members, at this time, I would like to invite members of the public attending the meeting in Sacramento to provide comments about this agenda item. Terry, are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to make a comment?
Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment at this time? Madam Chair, there are no members of the public who would like to make a comment. I return the meeting to you.
Thank you. Moderator, can you please ask if there's any comments via WebEx?
We are open for public comment via WebEx on the future meeting dates. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, and thank you, moderator, for your support with public comments during this meeting. At this time, I would like to know that there was an error on the agenda that listed item number 13 twice. This is item number 14. This meeting is now adjourned at 11:26. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to meeting with you again on March 12th, 2025.